Want to take a shower with Mitch? Hey Siri, play Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
I couldn't find Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon in your music.
Ugh, she never works. Direct from Montreal, Canada. This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to Personal Finances with Mitch Lafon. On the phone, I have Tommy DeCarlo, a Home Depot credit manager, going to tell you how to save up for that next new roof. And what was that? Oh, Rock Talk. Oh, right. Sorry. Welcome to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. And I've got, Tommy DeCarlo, singer for Boston. And, of course, anybody who's a Boston fan will know that he was a Home Depot credit manager who was picked out of the depot and brought over to the stage to sing. In fact, at the legendary Brad Delp tribute concert, and of course later moving on, performing with the band over the years. But now he's got his own band called DeCarlo, and their latest album, Lightning Strikes Twice, was released in January. So, hey, let's just get right into it. It's a fascinating story of rags to riches. And by the way, I might still help you to finance your new roof later. So stick around. Maybe I'll give you some advice. Who knows? Here we are on 3, 2, 1. Here is the one, the only, Tommy DeCarlo. We are speaking with Boston singer Tommy DeCarlo. The new album, DeCarlo, comes out January 24th. Bonjour, monsieur. How are you?
Mitch, I'm well. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
Yes. So talk to me about before we get to all the Boston stuff, talk to me about this sort of, is it a band album or is it a solo album?
No, it's definitely a band album. It's something that we didn't really plan on doing. I've been writing for a long time. Now, I did have a few songs already in the can, but they weren't for a record. They were just stuff that I was doing. And Frontiers actually reached out to Gary Peel. Of course, Gary, the longtime guitarist for the band Boston, and he said that they were wanting to get in touch with me about doing an album. So, I was shocked. I was like, wow, that's awesome. So I got in touch with Frontiers, and we just, we hashed out a deal, and we just went to work. And I did have a few songs that were already finished. However, I had to tweak them a little bit here and there to get them ready for the album. But for the most part, yes, this is definitely a band record.
Talk to me in terms of sound, because of course you are singing with Boston, have been since 2008. Do you sort of see yourself going in that melodic rock sort of Boston kind of road, down that road, or do you sort of create something new? Fans not knowing what DeCarlo's is yet, what is the sound that you're going for?
Well, I was influenced heavily, of course, by the band Boston, but also some other bands from back in that day, back in the 70s and 80s, the Foreigners, the Journeys, the band Styx also was a big influence on me. So I really took a piece of everything that was inside of me in terms of, music. And it was really a lot of fun to do because I was able to, not that I was out to duplicate anything, but I am particularly fond of that era of music, that classic rock, melodic classic rock. So it was only natural for me to go in that direction when I was writing the songs for the album. And it was definitely, a lot of fun. It was definitely something that I didn't really have to find a sound. I knew the sound that I wanted. I always loved Tom Scholz' Hammond organ, and there's some of that in there. And I really took a piece of a lot of those bands from back in the day, the melodic classic rock bands, and I put them to use in our record. And I think it was a good choice. It was a good way to go because it really came together nicely.
Yeah, it really did. And of course, you're working with your son on this one. Talk to me a little bit about working with not only just a family member like a brother, but a son, and seeing him get involved in this kind of music? Because obviously he's not from the era of classic melodic rock. He's not from the era of Foreigner. How did he get an appreciation for this? And does he bring some new elements to what you do and gives it sort of a different kind of, sort of a classic melodic rock with a little bit of modern edge to it?
Yes, he does. Working with my son has been just a blessing, really. I took him to his first Boston concert back in the 90s. And I can remember he just lit up. He loved it. And I brought him home, and shortly thereafter he wanted to start playing guitar. And of course, Tom was his hero, rock and roll hero, Tom Scholz. So he really embraced that music, and because it was all that I listened to, he had no choice but to listen to it, because we were in the car together or wherever we were going. It was that type of music, and so it's been a lot of fun. He does bring a little bit of his own, his own thing to the set list, and he does well with that. Especially on the record, he did some really nice guitar work on the record as well. But it's been, who would ever believe it? I mean, him and I, we have a couple of moments that are pretty special for us, and we both think the same way. When Tommy came out to see Boston, him and I went to go see them together. We were just fans, and I don't mean just fans, but we were fans, fans of the band. And then, some years later, here I am on stage with Boston, and I look to the side of the stage, and there's my son backstage watching the show. And, and now we're doing it together on stage. And so we have some nice moments that we definitely appreciate together up there on stage.
I can imagine. And I can also imagine being a fan of the band and becoming a member when you're over at the Home Depot and you come in the next day and you tell the coworkers, by the way, next summer I'm going to be touring with Boston. What was that sort of reaction like? Was there a lot of, oh, you're such a liar? What? Or was there like, hey, look at you. All right.
What's funny about that is when I went up to go perform with the band at the tribute show, everybody knew about that. It was a, pretty awesome thing. I got to go up there and perform with the band Boston, and I got to meet them all. And Tom was, kind enough and generous enough, not just to fly me up, but he flew my whole family up there and put us all up. And we were up there for about a week, and it was just a great experience. But when I came back, of course, Home Depot was our store. They were excited. And we had a little party, and they had a little thing set up in our break room. It was really kind of cool. But then after that, Tom had called me just maybe 5-6 days after that particular tribute show, and asked me if I would be interested in going out with the band on tour the following summer, which of course I said yes. But what he did was tell me to, just kind of keep it quiet and don't say nothing to anybody, just in case something doesn't work out. And so the funny thing was, I was going to Home Depot, and most of them, the excitement wore off, and it was like, I think they just kind of thought, well, he had his 15, seconds of fame, and he's done, it was over. And we talked about it, and we had a good time with it. But what they didn't know is when the tour got closer, I was actually flying up to Boston on weekends to rehearse with the band. And my coworkers had no clue. They just figured I was off for the weekend. Hey, what'd you do this weekend? Nothing, sat around, watch football or whatever I did, So it was kind of funny that I was doing that and I couldn't really tell them. And then when I finally, the tour was announced, then of course it was, everybody knew about it, and it was pretty crazy at that point, but very supportive at my local Home Depot store. I was very thankful for my coworkers. They were great about all this.
That's the greatest story, flying up. And by the way, what some fans might not know is that this was all made possible through MySpace, and it's like, wow, MySpace actually had a use. That's That's amazing.
I know.
Right?
I know. I couldn't believe that. Thankfully, my daughter, she was into the MySpace thing at the time, and she was able to help me post a couple of my Boston cover songs on there, and really that's how that all happened. So yeah,
that's the greatest story ever. So there's one thing about being flown out to a tribute show, and you sing the song, and then you get to do the tour. Like, you're sort of increasing the fan magic or that moment, but then you get to Life, Love, and Hope, the album, and you actually get to record a Boston album and be part of an album. And of course, they use Brad on there posthumously. What was that like, knowing that your voice now is going to live forever on a Boston album and actually be part of it? Talk to me about recording that album and just being like, oh, wow, I'm not just on the stage now. I'm on this forever moment.
Well, I got to tell you, Tom made it so incredibly comfortable for me to record with him. And it was the same way, excuse me, in rehearsals for the tour. He's incredibly easy to work with. I mean, he's super generous in terms of taking his time to help you become a better musician, and that's something that we all benefited from in the band. And so when it came time to go up to Boston and record with him on Life, Love, and Hope, I was able to go up there and not be too overwhelmed. However, it was the first time that I had been in his recording studio. So, right away, as soon as I walked in, I'm looking around at different instruments and things that, I see like a Wurlitzer keyboard, and I'm thinking, man, I wonder if that's the Wurlitzer that was played on My Destination on the Third Stage album or something, Or when I went up, when I got behind the mic and I started recording, I did have those moments where I thought, wow, I'm standing where, the late, great Brad Delp once stood and recorded. I wonder if I'm singing into the same microphone that maybe he did. So I did have those moments, and that was, an incredible experience. And I'm very thankful that I had some time to actually go out and, do a couple of tours with the band and have some time with them before I had to do that, because I think I was actually a better vocalist, for Tom, especially on that record then, than I would have been if it was, fresh out of the Home Depot box.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I can imagine. Just real quick, since I am in Montreal, on the Life, Love, and Hope, you covered "Oh Canada," which you actually sang. Talk to me about the decision of, for the lack of a better word, an American band covering the Canadian National Anthem. How did that come about? There's obviously some kind of backstory to it.
Honestly, I really don't know. I know that when we were getting ready to go out on tour, I knew that we had a couple of shows up in Canada, and I can remember Tom coming in late in the rehearsal sessions for that tour with an amazing demo of "Oh Canada," and I was like, we were all like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, he recorded it at home and he brought it in and he wanted us to hear it and, see how we felt about making a run at it. So I was all into it. I was like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, it sounds great. And then when he said, okay, Tom, you're going to be playing all the strings, the keyboard string parts to it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, really? So it wasn't that exciting anymore, just for fear that I wouldn't be able to play it and learn it within, a few days before our first show, which was up in Canada. So, but that goes over so well, because I think it shows, it shows our appreciation, for the Canadian anthem, but as well as, showing appreciation, in a live setting like that. When we played that, and our videographer did some amazing footage, up in Canada, and it was on the big screen, and when the music was playing, I mean, the place just went nuts, and it became a favorite of ours to play whenever we would go back up to Canada. It was just a, great feeling to get that reaction, from the fans up in Canada. It was just amazing.
Oh, I can imagine. And it's just very special for me to think, hey, this American band did our national anthem. Just real quick on Tom. He, of course, is known for the Rockman and tinkering and creating and building and engineering and doing all that stuff. When he's on the road, do you sort of see that genius at work where he's sort of tweaking stuff and coming up with stuff? Is he sort of in this nonstop creative process of, hey, we could do this better. Hey, if I just tweak that. Or when he's on the road, and then when he goes home, then he gets to be sort of the mad scientist, if I can say that.
I do think there are moments when we are on the road that, Tom is, he is in that mode. Our rehearsal sometimes, the equipment that Tom designed all those years ago, it's a bit temperamental. And, sometimes it does take a little TLC to get, some of that Rockman stuff to where Tom really wants it to be. And so he does spend some time tweaking his guitar rig, and getting everything, to where he likes it. But I would have to say, for the most part, it's really about the music once we get to, our first show. And, the first show of the tour. And that, that is the main focus. The main focus is the music and performing it the best that we can, to excite the fans and give them a heck of a show. But he does tinker a little bit, definitely more so at rehearsal than on tour at a show. But, to think that he, has has that in him to be able to build equipment that, it's funny, people have invented, amazing things, but to invent a sound, Tom created a sound that when you hear it, what it is, and what band it is. If you hear the Boston sound, nobody has to tell you it's Boston. You just know it is just by hearing it. And I think that is very unique for an individual to be able to have the talent to do something like that.
I fully agree. Now, of course, DeCarlo Lightning Strikes Twice comes out January 24th. Do check that out. But I want to ask you about the song that you wrote in Brad's memory. I'm a fan of different bands, and of course, some of them have passed away, and I've never been able to verbalize it or to make a song. What inspired you to do that song, and how did you sort of come up with it lyrically? And why was it important for you to sort of send out this message about Brad and this guy that you've loved as a fan for so many years?
It's hard to explain, really. After Brad's passing, I remember sitting at my piano, and it was before I had any contact with anybody from the band Boston, and I just. One of my favorite songs, because I'm a piano player, was "A Man I'll Never Be," which was one of Tom's, great songs of many. And so as I just thought about the lyrics, and I thought about "A Man I'll Never Be," and I just put a little twist on it, and I thought, "A man he'll always be." And I was just sitting at the piano one day, and I was just playing around, and I just happened to come up with that. And it was, there was something inside of me that wanted to express, my feelings towards what not only Brad meant to me, but the music that he sang, which, mostly written by Tom Scholz. So, that was, I think so many fans felt the same way. Maybe not all fans can, come up with a song, but that was my way of being able to express myself, at a tragic time. And I love that song. I don't play it very often. but I do love it. I touch on a number of titles of some of Tom's music that he's written over the years, and it's a favorite of mine. I love to play it, and it's I don't think I could ever put into words what the music of Boston or the voice of Brad Delp has meant to me. I mean, there's a lot of bands out there, and there's a lot of great musicians, a lot of singers, and everything else. But every once in a while, something comes down the pike that is just it touches you, in more ways than you can even describe, and that's what Brad Delp and Tom Scholz did with me with the music of Boston.
And such great music. So let me ask you this: as a fan of Boston, not as a member of Boston, they've had not that many albums. They've come out, one in 76, 78, then 86, 94, 2000. Like there's these long stretches of no Boston music. As a fan, did you find that frustrating, or did you find that special? Like, now it's been 10 years. Now we've got something new. How did you sort of see it from the fan perspective, their output, and waiting around because what they've put out, not a lot, but it's damn good.
Right. There was always a mystique about the band Boston, at least to me. Of course, back in the day, there wasn't social media, and you couldn't go online and see everything that you could see today. But being able to, every now and again, they would put out a record, like you say, it wouldn't be every year, or they wouldn't tour every year, or there wasn't videos of them, on the, back in the day when they had the MTV, VH1, all the video stuff. So to me, I always, you wish you kind of could have saw it, but it made it that much more special whenever you did see the band, or whenever a record they did release an album or something. There was just something about that was, I loved the fact that Tom was all about the music. It wasn't about, all the glitz and glamour that, people tend to think goes along with being a quote unquote rock star or the rock star life. So to me, I loved the mystique about the band. I loved that you couldn't see them all the time, but whenever they did come out with something, you knew that it was going to be special. And to me, it was, do I wish they had 20 albums? Sure, I do. But you know what? The ones that they did have, they were well worth the wait. And I can remember when Third Stage came out, it was like Christmas to me. It was like, man, it was amazing. I loved every minute of it. I listened to the record, and I really love the fact that they weren't in the mainstream on the videos, and I really did. Some about that was very appealing to me. So when you would come to a show, I mean, for the most part, you're probably laying eyes on the guys in the band that you really haven't seen them in the last, 8-10 years or more. And to me, that was, I'll give you a quick example. When I was up in Boston and we were playing, we were rehearsing for the tribute show, and they began to play the song More Than a Feeling. Well, the guest singer who was going to sing that particular song that night hadn't gotten to rehearsals yet. So Tom asked me if I wanted to, sing More Than a Feeling. I said, sure. So I stood up to the mic and I started singing they started playing More Than a Feeling. And I've never heard that except on a record. I've never heard it unless it was on the radio. So there's something about that makes you think, you mean people actually can play this stuff? I mean, when I heard it, I was just in amazement to think that I'm actually hearing somebody play this, and it's the band that's playing it. They're playing the song More Than a Feeling, and I'm about to sing it. And so, that mystique was always very special to me, that it just wasn't out there. You weren't, totally, there wasn't really
you weren't
so much of it that you were sick of it.
Yeah, you weren't oversaturated with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there you go. That's the word.
Yeah, and that's, see, and I agree with that. There are some bands sometimes where they just got something new every year, and it's at some point it's like, okay, let's take a time out. And then there are other, but that's great. Just real quick, I'll finish on this, and I'm just going to say, Tom Scholz, by the way, that's some guy someday I'm going to have to interview. I'd love to get him on the phone. But where are we going in terms of 2020 for you? DeCarlo is probably going to go tour. And is there anything happening in the world of Boston?
Yes, DeCarlo, we're going to be out. We're going to be busy. We got a bunch of shows lined up for the first time in our not really the first time, but we've had a few shows out of state. We've gone to Denver and played a show in Philadelphia and down to Florida. But we're going to be going back out on a little more consistent basis this year, and we're going to be doing quite a few shows across the country, which is going to be really a lot of fun. And unfortunately, no, there is not any news out there for a Boston tour. It's really the best place for that to find out is on bandboston.com. And, it's something that I think all of us band members, sure, we would all love to go out and tour every year because we are excited to get out and see the country again, but it's always nice to go out and play the music that, people love. The reaction that we get from the fans when we play that music is, it's a rush like no other. But, I wish I had some more news for you on that, Mitch, but I don't. And, if you're lucky enough to get Tom Scholz to do an interview, now that would be the person to ask.
Yeah, and getting Tom is almost impossible, I think. But on that, as we say, Tommy, merci, thank you. Lightning Strikes Twice, folks, January 24th, DeCarlo. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mitch. I really appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Let me just turn this off a second.
Ever wonder what Vince Neil would sound like if he was a black belt in Taekwondo? What about what his favorite McDonald's menu item is? Just hold the pickles. This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.